That will conclude the period for questions and comments. We'll now go to statements by members. Déclaration de député, and the honourable member for Brampton East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I stand to mark the 34th anniversary of the tragic events of November 1984. These orchestrated and targeted massacres against the Sikh community were an atrocity that resulted in the loss of thousands of innocent lives for which justice had not been served. All these years and numerous inquiries later, those responsible for the brutal massacres have still not been brought to justice. The burning questions around 1984 need to be answered. It is vital that we continue to call on the Indian government to pursue the truth, to pursue justice for those who carry the scars of 1984, and most importantly, to pursue accountability for the people of India. Truth and reconciliation have strengthened Canada, and they can be of great benefit to India too. We must remain steadfast in our commitment to openness, justice, human rights, and fairness, both at home and abroad. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
Mr. Speaker, communities across this country are grappling with proposals for supervised consumption sites in an effort to reduce the negative impacts of drug addiction and abuse. We all recognize the important public health benefit of keeping people safe and minimizing death, disease, and injury. But there has to be room for different harm reduction strategies, Mr. Speaker. I recently visited Vancouver's downtown east side and saw what really is happening firsthand. I talked to the addicts, heard their stories, and listened to what they said. This is a failed social experiment. It is a crisis that isn't getting any better. While there I met with members of the HoC Squad, a charity run by serving and retired police officers who volunteer their time to educate youth and the community about substance abuse and, more importantly, on approaches on how to avoid addiction in the first place. Governments must assure appropriate funding is directed towards detox and treatment on demand facilities, plus organizations like the HoC Squad, in order to give hope to the hopeless. The human cost is far too high to refuse to consider altering the current course.
The honourable member for Marc-Aurèle-Fortin. Mr. Speaker, this year, for Remembrance Day, we hope that all Canadians will take the time to take a break and to pay tribute to all those who have served. We remember the service and sacrifices of the soldiers, sailors, and airmen who answered the call of duty and paid the ultimate price. We honor those who continue to serve our country to make our world safer. During Veterans Week, as well as on Remembrance Day, Canadians from coast to coast lay wreaths, participate in ceremonies, share their stories, and wear poppies with pride. To our veterans and current members of our forces, we say thank you.
The honourable member for Essex.
Mr. Speaker, this year marks the 34th anniversary of the 1984 Sikh genocide. Over 3 days, almost 3,000 Sikhs were killed, and their property was looted and destroyed. Sikh men were burned alive. Women suffered horrific sexual violence, and children were murdered in gruesome fashion. Many have pointed out that state resources were instrumental in these premeditated killings. But 34 years later, justice and accountability for these horrendous crimes remain elusive. That is why I stand today to express my solidarity with the thousands of Canadians who live with this pain as survivors and as bearers of intergenerational trauma. It is also why efforts for healing and reconciliation must be prioritized. The path to reconciliation will not be easy, but for the victims and survivors, today we remember.
The honourable member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, it was in Blainville that the first high-tech weather radar system was set up in Quebec. Given climate change, we're going to be experiencing more and more extreme or unusual weather events, as we saw with the tornadoes in Gatineau and Ottawa. This is why I'm pleased with our government's investment of $95 million to replace weather radar. These new radar systems will have a broader range and this will allow people to benefit from greater accuracy in predictions. It will allow the public to take appropriate action rapidly, especially with respect to road safety, snow removal, and school closures. This is good news for my region, good news for Canadians' safety. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For North Okanagan Shuswap.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I had the pleasure of being present at Rideau Hall, where a constituent, Mr. Norman Carrera, received a Meritorious Service Award. Mr. Carrera was recognized for his vision and dedication in creating the Okanagan Military Tattoo. With the help of numerous enthusiastic volunteers, Norm founded the Tattoo, a musical spectacle that brings pipers, drummers, and dancers from across the country and abroad to the Okanagan each summer. As a result of his leadership and hundreds of hours of time, the event is a boost for the local economy and a showcase of military and cultural traditions that is unique in Western Canada. This is not the first trip to Rideau Hall for Mr. Carrera. He was also recognized in 2017, the 50th anniversary of his role in the 1967 Voyageur canoe trip across Canada as part of the 1967 Olympics. Congratulations and thank you to Norm Carrera and your loving wife, Nancy, for your dedication to our community and our country.
The honourable member for Davenport.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. This week,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
who have so bravely served and or died for our freedom, it is especially important to recognize and remember those who fought in the Great War, as this year marks the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. This year's Remembrance Day ceremony in my riding of Davenport is extra special because as veterans returned home from the Great War in 1918, the Government of Canada identified the need to recognize their valor and patriotic service to our country. No military burial ground existed at the time, so Prospect Cemetery in Davenport was chosen as the preferred location to create a field of honour, and Canada's first veteran section was established. Today, Prospect Cemetery is the final resting place of more than 5,300 Canadian Allied Forces veterans, making it the largest First World War veteran section in Canada. So I encourage everyone on November 11th, those in Davenport and across the riding, to attend Prospect Cemetery, who hosts an annual sunrise ceremony every Remembrance Day, and let's pay special tribute to those who have so bravely served our country. Thank you so much, Mr.
The honourable member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate Dr. Wilf Keller, Chair of the Agricultural Institute of Canada, on his induction into the Canadian Agricultural Hall of Fame for his contributions to the advancement of agriculture through numerous research initiatives. Dr. Keller is a giant in the scientific community with over 40 years of experience, including the study of genomics in canola improvement, the development of industrial bioproducts from vegetable oils, and the production of bioactive natural products in plants for enhanced human health and quality of life. Dr. Keller has received many accolades, including a Lifetime Achievement Award by the Society of In Vitro Biology, the Saskatchewan Order of Merit, and induction into the Saskatchewan Agriculture Hall of Fame. Today we recognize Dr. Wilf Keller for his extraordinary career in the scientific and agricultural community. Thank you, Dr. Keller.
Honourable member for Perth Wellington.
Mr. Speaker, this year marks 100 years since the armistice which ended the war to end all wars. When the call to serve king and country went out, more than 600,000 Canadians answered that call, including many from Perth Wellington. Among those who served were Frederick Campbell of Mount Forest and Samuel Honey from nearby Caen. Lieutenant Campbell was killed in the north of France while single-handedly providing cover to allow his comrades to withdraw. Lieutenant Honey was among those who took Vimy Ridge, and later at Bourlon Wood in France, he took command of his company after all other officers had become casualties. He would repel 4 counterattacks and personally captured 10 prisoners before falling. For their courage, both men were awarded the Victoria Cross. This Remembrance Day, we honor the courage and the sacrifice of all who served, lest we forget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Bokassa. Mr. Speaker, It is my great pleasure to pay tribute to 6 men who've undertaken meritorious actions which have affected my riding. I awarded an Honour and Merit Certificate and a medal to these exceptional men during a ceremony I organized in Montreal North with the theme Men Who Make a Mark. Volunteer activity by these men has helped to harmonize Montreal North. It is my great pleasure to present them to the House of Commons. The recipients are Guillaume André, Christian Deshôtels, Jean-Paul Guillard, Roger Lagacé, Roger Petitfrère, and Roger Trépanier. Mr. Speaker, bravo to these gentlemen. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, built in 2008, the Concert Hall of Dolbeau-Mistassini is undeniably one of the most beautiful in Quebec. It was inspired by European theatres of the 19th century and has superior acoustics with its red velvet, its black and gold colors, its chandelier. Everything favors intimity and contrast. The architect Paul Rondeau built it, and it is celebrating its 10th anniversary during Culture Week. It celebrated last September. At the same time, the Symphony Orchestra of Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean celebrated its 40th anniversary. We were treated to a magnificent concert under the baton of conductor Jacques Clément and Jacinthe Couture. Lac-Saint-Jean is rich in culture, and it is our pride to have such a concert hall. I would also like to mention the anniversary of the concert hall and the Symphony Orchestra of Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, which are important drivers of culture in our region. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Saskatoon Grasswood.
Mr. Speaker, Elgar Peterson is a well-known name in the hockey community worldwide, but especially in the city of Humboldt. Elgar helped many minor hockey teams, and when the Broncos were formed in 1970, he became their trainer and equipment manager. He washed the jerseys, he looked after water bottles, tape, whatever was needed. But most of all, Mr. Speaker, Elgar always had a pat on the back for each player who put on a Humboldt jersey. In 2000, the city of Humboldt named their Uniplex after him, the Elgar Peterson Arena. He filled the role of coach, friend, volunteer, mentor. He was at the rink, Mr. Speaker, morning, noon, and night. He tied countless skate laces over the decades, including mine many times, Mr. Speaker. This weekend, it was at the same Elgar Peterson Arena in Humboldt, and all too familiar with grief, where his recent passing was announced prior to Saturday's Bronco hockey game. All Broncos feel this loss today, Mr. Speaker. Today we mourn for Elgar and Humboldt again. Rest in peace, Elgar.
The Honourable Member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge the 8th annual Poppy campaign by the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Canada, supporting the Royal Canadian Legion under the banner Muslims for Remembrance. This nationwide campaign is a demonstration of Ahmadiyya Muslim support and respect for our veterans and troops, and for all those who pay the ultimate sacrifice to keep Canada strong and free. Ahmadis are assisting the Royal Canadian Legion in distributing poppies and collecting donations. And on November 9th, at the beautiful Batul Islam Mosque in my riding and at chapters all across Canada, Ahmadiyya Muslim communities will come together for a ceremony of remembrance. Members of the Ahmadiyya community have expressed to me how important it is to remember the brave soldiers who fought for our freedom and for those still fighting for peace around the world, especially on this very special 100th anniversary of the armistice. I'd like to thank the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in my riding and all across Canada for their support of our troops and veterans and for your commitment to never forget, lest we forget.
The Honourable Member for Victoria.
Housing is unaffordable for nearly half of people in Victoria. Rental vacancy levels remain below 1%, and 1 in 5 Victorians are spending more than half their income on rent and utilities. and owning a house is virtually a fantasy. Between 2000 and 2016, the median income for a family in Victoria increased by 64%, the price of a single-family home by 340%. In 1993, the Liberal government then cut the National Affordable Housing Program, which would have supported the construction of 100,000 units in BC between then and now. And this Liberal government refuses to spend 90% of their promised funding for housing until after the next election. Affordable housing is a fundamental right. I'll be holding a town hall this Saturday to discuss what this government is refusing to do, make affordable housing a reality for Canadians.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, is it surprising, given his dismal failures, that the Prime Minister has no plan to counter U.S. protectionism and prepare our industries for this eventuality? Liberals announced new measures in order to deal with the influx of American imports. Since the 25th of October, imports of 7 steel products, rebar, steel sheeting, hot rolled steel, tubular steel, stainless steel, steel wire rod, will all be subject to a 25% surtax if the level of imports exceeds limits. Mr. Speaker, our Conservative priority number 1 is the elimination of these destructive tariffs. It's a sad observation, but the PM has been derelict in his duty to protect the Canadian economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Sackville, Preston, Chesapeake.
Mr. Speaker, on Veterans Week, all Canadians come together to honour Canadian Armed Forces members, veterans and police officers who have served Canada and remember those who have died in service. As the Member of Parliament for Sackville, Preston, Chesapeake, I'm particularly aware of the work and the sacrifices of our armed forces. Veterans in my riding make up 23%, and Nova Scotia has the highest per capita in the country. Cette année souligne de nombreux...
This is the year of major anniversaries. The 100th anniversary of Canada's 100 Days and the Armistice, as well as the 65th anniversary of the Korean War.
All veterans and the Canadian Armed Forces members for their service. Your country is grateful and will always remember your sacrifices, lest we forget. Thank you.
Oral questions orales. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
The Canadian Chamber of Commerce warned that the Prime Minister's plan to spy on Canadians' banking transactions could put our trade with the European Union at risk. The Chamber expressed serious concerns about unintended consequences on our trade with Europe, which would then affect Canadian small businesses. Instead of dismissing legitimate questions coming from Canadians who don't want to be spied on, and now further legitimate questions from the business community, will the Liberals just do the right thing and stop this unauthorized surveillance of Canadians' bank accounts?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member opposite for a very thoughtful question, and I just want to take this opportunity to highlight that our government has been very clear when it comes to protecting the privacy of Canadians and data protection, and that's very important. I also want to highlight that this particular initiative undertaken by Statistics Canada is a pilot project. No data has been collected, and StatsCan is working very closely with the Privacy Commissioner and with banks as well to make sure that privacy of Canadians is protected.
Honourable Opposition House Leader, order.
Mr. Speaker, why is this Liberal government not understanding that Canadians don't trust them when it comes to protecting their private information? And the response of the government over the last 2 weeks has not given Canadians any more confidence. They're worried about their financial transactions being spied on. The business community is concerned. And instead of saying that the Liberals will fix this mess, they're doubling down and defending it. That is the wrong response, Mr. Speaker. What Canadians want to hear is that the Liberals will stop this unauthorized surveillance of their bank accounts. Why won't they do that?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we recognize the concerns that Canadians have around privacy and around data protection as well. But what's really problematic is the over-the-top rhetoric by the members opposite. Let me give you an example, Mr. Speaker. Under Section 17.1 of the Statistics Act, no police, RCMP, or CRA can actually access any personal information. The courts can't even compel Statistics Canada. They never have and never will compromise on personal information when it comes to Canadians' privacy.
Richmond Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, if that were true, there wouldn't be an investigation against the government at present. The Liberal government is collecting information, personal, confidential information on Canadians without their consent. We learned on the weekend, just yesterday, in fact, and the day before, that could threaten our trade with Europe. Will the Prime Minister finally understand that what's happening at present is unacceptable? This is an attack on people's privacy. What is the Prime Minister waiting for to take up his responsibilities and to put an end to this situation immediately? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government takes very seriously the privacy of Canadians. Let's be clear. This is a pilot project. No data has been collected. No data has been collected. Statistics Canada is working with the Privacy Commissioner. The Honourable Member for Richmond Athabasca. No data collected, but the Privacy Commissioner is going to be deepening an investigation. That's quite interesting. But let's talk about another issue that's of concern to Canadians. April 25th, the member for Saint-Léonard-Saint-Michel announced that he was leaving political life. June 12th, he made his farewell speech here in this House in front of all parliamentarians to say that he was leaving political life. September 27th, he says, all of a sudden, I'm going to take a month to reflect on my political career. Except that now we've learned recently that the Prime Minister has supposedly given him a secret mandate. So the question for the Prime Minister is this: what is the secret mission? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, all members are accountable for their work to their constituents for their work in Ottawa. The member in question has said that he is reflecting on his future plans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Order. Order.
Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, 5 months ago, the member from St. Leonard, St. Michel stood in this place and gave what we all thought was his resignation speech. Well, 5 months later, he's still an MP being paid by the taxpayers, but appears to have not shown up for a day's work since then. Now, the member said that he's been working on a very special government responsibility assigned to him by the Prime Minister. So can the Prime Minister tell this House what this highly important government job or assignment is that he gave to the member, which means the member doesn't have to show up for work?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as I have just said in French, I will repeat in English that the Member of Parliament is responsible to their constituents for their work in Ottawa. The member has stated that he is reflecting on his next steps. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Alors.
Order.
L'Honorable. Alors.
Order.
Député de Rimouski.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. Several days ago, Mexico stated that it wouldn't ratify the new trade agreement until President Trump hasn't abolished tariffs on American steel and aluminum. That is what we call taking a stand, Mr. Speaker. Steelworkers came to Ottawa to call for exactly the same thing from the Liberal government, because these tariffs run the risk of forcing several companies from here to close down. Liberals are not listening. My question is very simple, Mr. Speaker. Why does the Mexican government have a backbone, but not this Liberal government here in Ottawa? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, this gives me an opportunity to point out that last Tuesday I attended an event with Unifor to celebrate the new trade agreement with Mexico and the United States, and the head of the NDP was in attendance to celebrate, as was the Quebec lieutenant, the member for Rosemont, La Petite Patrie. He said at the mic that it was a good agreement. So what is the position of the NDP on this subject? The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. Well, we're wondering why the Mexican government has a backbone, but not this government. Now, this is a sad anniversary, Mr. Speaker, because a year ago the Paradise Papers came out, but prior to those papers, there were the Panama Papers, the Luxembourg leaks, the Swiss leaks, the offshore leaks, and the KPMG scandals to help Canadians avoid paying their taxes. In all these cases, the Revenue Agency was unable to take action or simply pardon to these people who are guilty. Instead of persecuting people who are receiving benefits, well, no, that's where they're effective, and they're working on that. Why is there a double standard when it comes to action on the Paradise Papers? Mr. Speaker, allow me to read what the member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie said to the Canadian negotiators. He said, I just want to congratulate everyone in this room for the fantastic work that you have accomplished. He added, saying that the trade agreement represented the best agreement possible and protected workers across the country. We agree. The agreement is delivering the goods. Stability, it's saving jobs, it's protecting jobs in Canada as well.
Member for Essex.
Well, I'm not surprised the Liberals don't want to talk about the Paradise Papers. The Paradise Papers was a huge leak of financial documents that revealed how politicians, multinationals, and the wealthiest evade taxes. As a working-class Canadian, try dodging taxes and see how that works out. Not only have the ultra-wealthy rigged the system completely for them, but we are all paying the price. Tax dodging deprives Canadians of our public services like health care, and this government is doing nothing to stop it. Instead of going after the big bucks, Liberals continue to go after the little guys. When is this government going to find some courage and stop tax evasion in Canada?
Minister Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague is comparing apples and oranges. The reality is that we reinvested in CRA. We've made sure to counter tax evasion by investing more than $500 million to counter tax evasion. And also at the same time, we've been reinvesting in the public service to make sure that Canadians have access to really good public service and good services in terms of programs and support all across the country. We can do both, and that's exactly what our government is doing. Thank you.
Order. The honourable member for Essex.
New Democrats are calling on this Liberal government not to sign the USMCA until steel and aluminum tariffs on Canadian workers are removed. This is about jobs. This is about Canadians' livelihoods. This is about keeping Canadian shops open. Trump's unjustified tariffs are having a devastating impact on Canadian workers and their families. No wonder Mexico announced that it wouldn't sign the deal until the tariffs on their workers are gone. Will this government do the right thing and not sign this deal until steel and aluminum tariffs are removed?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
I have to say I'm surprised again. Once again, I have to remind my colleague from the other side that the leader of the NDP was at a reception celebrating the fact that Canada had arrived at a deal on USMCA. In fact, their Quebec lieutenant, the member from Rosemont-la-Patrie, actually said this was the best deal possible. He said this at an occasion that was multi-partisan and very, very clearly indicated that the NDP is quite pleased with the deal that we arrived at in this government.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicolet.
Mr. Speaker, last week the Prime Minister went to extraordinary lengths to defend the Liberals' plan to engage in the unauthorized surveillance of Canadians' personal banking information. We also learned that they have already seized 15 years of private information from a credit rating bureau of potentially millions of Canadians. They did all of this without the knowledge or consent of any impacted Canadians. Will the government delete all the information they've already secretly collected and end their plans to collect even more information, Mr. Speaker?
Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we've been very clear about our concerns around privacy and data protection. That is why our government introduced new regulations when it comes to PIPEDA to further strengthen privacy. That's why we're actually engaged with the Canadians around further data protection. With respect to personal information and the request made under this pilot project, it is clear that all this personal information will be removed, Mr. Speaker. Under Section 17(1) of the Statistics Act, the government cannot compel StatsCan, the opposition can't, the courts can't, the national security agencies can't. Bottom line is the privacy of Canadians has been and will always be protected.
thank the member for his patience. I'd ask all members to be patient and listen when someone else has the floor. Remember, we each get our turn eventually. The honourable member for Central Okanagan's Milkmaid Nicolet.
Mr. Speaker, the government on Friday claimed that this pilot project also was still in design, but they actually were secretly getting the accounts of potentially millions of Canadians from our credit bureau. Now, Mr. Speaker, specifically, Conservatives have sponsored a petition calling for the end of this program that in just a few days has already received 14,000 signatures. Now, Canadians care about their privacy, even if this government doesn't. The chief statistician says they can't ask for consent because most Canadians will refuse to give it. Is it seriously the position of the government? They can't get consent from Canadians to collect this data? They'll just do it secretly behind their backs.
Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we already had this debate in 2015 when the members opposite said when it came to the long-form census, we want to make it voluntary. You know what that resulted in? 1,128 communities did not receive good quality, reliable data. That impacted communities and businesses and Canadians right across this country. We're willing to have this debate, Mr. Speaker. StatsCan has been very clear they'll continue to protect the privacy of Canadians, protect data, Mr. Speaker, and the members opposite just don't trust good quality, reliable data.
The honourable member for Louis-Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, I don't think the Liberals understand the seriousness of the situation they themselves created. Honest Canadians don't want the Liberal government delving into their bank accounts. It's simple. And the Liberal government doesn't want to understand that. This is a direct attack on their dignity, their privacy, and the Liberal Party, the Liberal government, has no business putting its nose into people's bank accounts. Why is the government so bent on going in this direction? The Honourable Minister.
Pretty, ordinary behavior from the members opposite, because this is Stephen Harper's party. This is about fear-mongering. This is about going over the top with their rhetoric. This is about scare tactics, Mr. Speaker. What they fail to disclose to Canadians is that any information that Statistics Canada collects, personal information is first of all removed. Secondly, Statistics Canada has been very clear. They never ever disclose that information to anyone. And with regards to this pilot project, they've engaged the Privacy Commissioner and they'll address any issues Statistics Canada will around privacy and data protection.
The honourable member for Louis-Saint-Laurent. Well, Mr. Speaker, what we're seeing here is that Liberal government is wanting to snoop into people's bank accounts, and that runs counter to our democracy. On the contrary, the government says that it's a pilot project. Pilot or not, it makes no sense. A pilot project is something that they want to say, but Canadians want nothing to do with this. On the weekend, that's what they told me. The Chamber of Commerce on the weekend said that it could have a detrimental effect on trade with Europe. Why is the government so intent on going in this direction? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians understand the importance of privacy. They understand the importance of data protection. They also understand the importance of good quality, reliable data. This data that is under process under the pilot project, for example, can help the Bank of Canada so they can look at how to make monetary decisions around interest rate policy. This helps around consumer price index to make sure that individuals get the appropriate benefits under OAS and CPP. This is about evidence-based decision-making. The members opposite have a problem against Statistics Canada, and they have a problem against good quality, reliable data.
Honourable member for Chilliwack HoC.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, Canadians do take their privacy very seriously, which is why they don't want this government stealing their financial information without their consent. This government has been, there is documentation, 800 pages worth of this government violating the privacy of hundreds of thousands of Canadians just in the last 19 months alone. So now what the government is saying, if Canadians won't willingly give their private financial data, they'll just take it by force and without their consent. Why don't they put an end to that today? Stop this unauthorized surveillance of Canadians' personal private data.
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, not one single breach where any information is actually on the servers. The members opposite, again, are over the top with their rhetoric. They're over the top when it comes to fear-mongering and misleading Canadians because they fundamentally don't believe in good quality, reliable data. They had this debate with the mandatory long-form census. We won that debate because Canadians understand the importance of reliable data to help communities, to help Canadians. Canadians, to help businesses, Mr. Speaker. We're willing to have this debate, and I can tell you right now, when it comes to privacy and data protection, Canadians respect StatsCan.
Order, there's far too much noise here. The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
Well, Mr. Speaker, last week the government said that Canadians trusted them with this data and that we in the official opposition should just get on board with this program for the government to harvest the financial data of Canadians. No, Mr. Speaker, we won't do that. We're standing up for Canadians who have not given their consent for this government to go snooping around their private financial transactions, their credit transactions, their debit transactions, their mortgage payments. All of it's on the table. Why doesn't the Prime Minister put an end to this invasion of privacy and unauthorized government surveillance, and do it today?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, all personal information will be removed. The members opposite know that. The members opposite also know that there's been no breaches when it comes to Statistics Canada's server. The problem is, Mr. Speaker, the members opposite just don't trust StatsCan. They don't like good quality, reliable data. They don't want Canadians to see a government make decisions based on evidence. They have a fundamental problem against data, against the facts, against science. We've had this debate before, and we continue to have this debate, and we look forward to the debate come the next election.
L'honorable député.
The honourable member for
Allard.
Order.
Remind members that most members are able to sit through question period and hear things they don't like without reacting. May be hard, but most are adult and can do it. Most in all parties are able to do it, and I'm sure the rest can as well. Honorable député de Jonquière.
The honourable member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, since 2016, there's some $372 million promised to our veterans that went unspent. Our veterans deserve good quality services. There aren't hundreds of ways of improving services. They need to invest the money as promised. Under our motion today, the government would automatically carry over all unused funds to the following year, which would solve the problem, the funding problem facing Veterans Affairs. Will the Liberals make the right decision, set partisanship aside, and support our motion?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to stand on behalf of the government and talk about the support that our government is giving to veterans. Anytime when it comes to motions for our veterans, we will support it. Mr. Speaker, we've listened to our veterans, Mr. Speaker. That's why we delivered the pension for life, reopened the 9 offices previously closed by the Harper Conservatives, hired over 470 staff as well, put forward a joint suicide prevention strategy, created the Veterans Emergency Fund, Mr. Speaker, and the list goes on, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to our veterans, Mr. Speaker, we will support them. Thank you.
The member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, while backlogs for processing veterans' applications for disability, earnings loss benefits, and every other program are growing, the Liberals have left $372 million unspent at Veterans Affairs. This government is failing our veterans, meeting just 12 of its 24 self-identified service standards, and have not hired the caseworkers they promised. First, Conservatives left over $1 billion unspent. Now the Liberals have followed suit. Canadians know veterans deserve better. Will the government support our motion and make use of this lapse spending so veterans get the services they need?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, when it comes to any motions of supporting our veterans, our government will be supporting that motion. The benefits are demand-driven, so whether 10 or 10,000 eligible veterans come forward, they receive benefits. These are based on estimates, and this process guarantees that whether a veteran comes forward this year or the following year, we will always have the resources available for veterans. When we took office, we immediately increased financial support, putting more money in the veterans' pockets, increasing mental health support, and delivering on the promise that we made to veterans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
The government admits that when its carbon tax reaches $50 a tonne, the cost to the average family will be around $300. Now, even if you believe those bogus numbers, they don't take into account a document released just last week wherein the government admits that after the next election, it will consider raising the carbon tax even further. If that's the case, they should be honest about it now. Can they guarantee, yes or no, whether the tax will go higher than the government has currently admitted? Yes or no?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased the honourable member opposite contemplates that the Liberals will still be in power after the next election. The fact is we've been transparent from the beginning about our plan to protect the environment and grow the economy. Our national climate plan has been posted on our website since the day it was negotiated. Part of that plan, and I'm proud to stand by it, is to put a price on pollution that will max it at $50 a tonne by 2022. We will conduct a review of the policy at that time. Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member is so concerned with transparency, I'd suggest he looks inward and asks the honourable leader of the opposition why he deleted his plan from his leader's website in May of 2017.
Honourable member for Carleton.
So there you have it. There will be a review of the price in 2022 after the election is over. So Canadians would have to wake up to that nightmare after having voted to choose the next government. You know, this government already broke its promises on the deficit, already broke promises on taxes for the middle class. Now they're setting up for yet another broken promise with a carbon tax on gas, home heating, and other essentials that will be much higher than the government admits. Will it rule out that the tax will be higher than they now admit? Yes or no?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, it's interesting now that the Conservative Party of Canada seems opposed to reviewing policies periodically because they seem to prefer basing their decisions on ideology rather than facts, science, or evidence. Mr. Speaker, we campaign on a commitment to protect our environment and grow the economy at the same time. I'm proud that we've implemented a price on pollution that's going to leave middle-class families better off. And if there is a nightmare here, Mr. Speaker, it's going to be during the next campaign when the Conservatives are trying to take money from their constituents so they can make pollution free again.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Well, pollution under the Liberal plan is absolutely free for any large industrial polluter that emits more than 50,000 tons of greenhouse gases. But it's not free for a grandmother trying to heat her home in minus 30-degree weather. It's not free for a middle-class single mom taking her child to soccer. It's not free for a small business. They all deserve to know, will the tax go even higher after the next election if by some godforsaken outcome this party wins that election?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, just because the honourable member opposite has the ability to repeat a falsehood does not make it true. The fact is we put a price on pollution, including a price for big emitters. There's a standard set in different industries, and if the big emitters exceed that standard, then they pay a price on pollution. Mr. Speaker, Stephen Harper's former Director of Policy has indicated that families can expect to be better off. Doug Ford's Chief Budget Advisor has advocated on behalf of putting a price on pollution. Even Stephen Harper, back in 2008, suggested that the plan going forward should involve an effective price of $65 a tonne. The fact is, families will be left better off under our plan, Mr. Speaker, and it's disappointing.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is suggesting that his own government documents are false. They indicate that not only will large industrial emitters get up to a 90% exemption on the carbon tax, but even if they exceed that 90%, they can use something called surplus credits or eligible offset credits to avoid paying any tax whatsoever. So yes, pollution will be free for the large polluters, but how much will the average Canadian family have to pay?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member's repetition does not make the falsehood true, nor does his use of air quotes in this circumstance, Mr. Speaker. The fact is we campaign on a commitment to protect our environment and grow the economy at the same time. Part of our plan to protect the environment includes putting a price on pollution. This is going to leave middle-class families better off, Mr. Speaker. If you don't believe me, you can look to Stephen Harper's former Director of Policy. You can look to Doug Ford's Chief Budget Advisor. You can look to the Nobel Prize winner in economics from this year. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, we're moving forward with a plan that will protect our environment, leave families better off, and I'm disappointed that the Conservatives want to take money from their constituents to make pollution.
The
honourable member for Sainte-Sainte-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to medical aid in dying, the government has shown a lack of sensitivity and has set up an overly restrictive law. Denise Bégin, one of my constituents who has a serious degenerative illness, is asking for medical aid in dying. But her request has been turned down because her death is not immediately foreseeable. The government should not be making this choice instead of the people themselves. Will the government respect these people's wishes as well as the Supreme Court ruling?
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the opportunity to answer the question. Medical assistance in dying is an incredibly complex, sensitive, and deeply personal issue. Our government put forward legislation that we're proud forms the national framework around medical assistance in dying, which draws the correct balance between balancing the autonomy of individuals and protecting vulnerable people. We are continuing to have a discussion around medical assistance in dying. We have according to the legislation, commissioned 3 reviews on highly complex issues that will be coming back in December, and look forward to having further conversations about it.
Well, member for Victoria.
In 2016, Bob Hergott had to sign his request for medical assistance in dying in a bus shelter. Then in 2017, Doreen Nowicki was forced to receive her assessment for ending her life on the sidewalk. Edmonton's Covenant Health hospitals, where these patients were treated, have banned these activities on their properties. Mr. Speaker, enough is enough. Will the Liberals actually defend their legislation, show some leadership, and ensure that the constitutional rights of terminally ill patients are upheld across Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, medical assistance in dying is a deeply complex, sensitive, and a deeply personal matter for individuals that are seeking to access medical assistance in dying. Our government introduced Bill C-14 in response to the Supreme Court of Canada decision in Jordan. We are confident that our legislation strikes the right balance between protecting vulnerable people and respecting the personal autonomy of individuals, as well as recognizing the conscience right of healthcare practitioners. We will continue to have a conversation around medical assistance in dying. We have commissioned 3 reviews according to the legislation that look at complex issues.
The Honourable Member for Nova West.
Mr. Speaker, a month ago in Halifax was the naming ceremony of Canada's first Arctic and offshore patrol ship, the first naval ship built in Canada in 20 years, and our government delivered it. As part of Strong, Secure, Engage, Canada's defence policy, we committed to building at least 5 Arctic and offshore patrol ships to bolster the Royal Canadian Navy's capabilities. Shipbuilding is an important part of our local economy. Can the Minister of National Defence explain how our government is continuing to create significant opportunities for Nova Scotians while ensuring our Navy has the tools they need? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member from West Nova for his tremendous and tireless work. Mr. Speaker, as promised, our government is strengthening the capability of the Royal Canadian Navy. And last week, I was proud to announce that we will move ahead with the acquisition of a 6th Arctic and offshore patrol ship. This will create good middle-class jobs for workers in Halifax and across Nova Scotia. And this is a great day for Halifax, Mr. Speaker, and a great day for the Royal Canadian Navy. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, instead of ending drug smuggling in prisons, the Prime Minister has chosen to set up a needle exchange program for prisoners, another harebrained initiative that threatens the safety of both inmates and prison guards. The Union is appalled by this decision and is calling on the government to change course immediately. Yet again, the Prime Minister is showing his sympathy for criminals while dismissing the concerns of law-abiding citizens. Will the Prime Minister admit that his plan puts prison guards in danger?
For public safety.
No, in fact, Mr. Speaker, for quite some time now, in the correctional system, the Correctional Service of Canada has properly managed the use of EpiPens, for example, and insulin syringes. So there's well-established procedure for dealing with these circumstances in a safe way to prevent the spread of disease and to save lives, Mr. Speaker. Public safety is what this is all about.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. That has nothing to do with it, Mr. Speaker. Handing out syringes to people in prisons doesn't make any sense. Now, the Immigration and Refugee Board is sounding the alarm, warning that new asylum seekers may have to wait up to 2 years to find out if they can stay in Canada or not. 60,000 new applications are expected this year. The Liberals have set aside $74 million to deal with the backlog, and the provinces are asking for another $400 million in compensation. All this waste because of the Prime Minister and his reckless propaganda at taxpayers' expense. Will the Prime Minister admit that he's made a huge mess of our immigration system?
The Minister of Border Security.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Let me be very, very clear that after years of chronic underfunding and understaffing, we have been restoring the capacity of the IRB to deal with those who have come to our country seeking asylum. And Mr. Speaker, I think it's also a good opportunity to remind all Canadians who these people are. Their families with children, almost half of whom are children. They're thoroughly vetted to ensure that they represent no risk to public safety or national security by the RCMP, and I want to assure the member opposite he has nothing to be afraid of.
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Last week on CBC, the Minister of Immigration said that his Ontario counterpart's claims that 40% of Toronto's homeless shelter occupants were refugees and asylum seekers were, quote, not based on facts. Well, the CBC fact-checked the minister and found that Minister McLeod's claims are, in fact, valid. Wow. Was the minister intentionally misleading Canadians, or does he not know the basic facts of his file? In either scenario, why should Canadians trust him to fix his illegal border crossing mess?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Speaker, I was on television to talk about our immigration levels that Canadians have been asking us to increase in order to meet our our employee shortages as well as skills shortages around the country. We've responded with an ambitious and a well-measured immigration plan. We've done that after listening to Canadians. We've held hundreds of town halls across the country, something that the party opposite has not done. In fact, the member opposite has just come around to the understanding that it's important to talk to Canadians about immigration for 3 years. After blocking people on Twitter, that's the only way Canadians can actually get a hold of her.
The honourable member order for Calgary-Nose Hill.
It's a lot of angry, Mr. Speaker. Real angry. The reality, Mr. Speaker, is that Canadian taxpayers are on the hook for hundreds of millions of dollars for the Prime Minister's #Welcome to Canada illegal border crossing program.
That's right.
Instead of trying to fix the problem, the Prime Minister is allowing his cabinet to attempt to bully anyone who questions whether we should pay for those thousands of people who are illegally entering Canada. Will the minister apologize for his bullying attempt to Minister McLeod?
Honourable Minister of Border Security.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the member opposite that we have been working very carefully with the province of Ontario, the province of Quebec, the city of Toronto. I have met and had a number of conversations with the minister and mayors responsible. We are working hard to ensure that Canadian law is upheld and that we uphold our responsibilities to anyone who seeks the protection of the country and to treat them in an appropriate way according to our laws. Mr. Speaker, we are achieving significant success in reducing the number of people that have presented themselves.
Order. The honourable member for Abbotsford seems to think he doesn't need to have the floor to speak in the House, and I'd ask him to remember that he does, because he wouldn't want to not have it.
The honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, nearly 3 years ago, my colleague for Winder West asked the minister to ensure that all Canadian jobs be protected when Lowe's bought Rona. You can imagine their shock when employees were told their store would close and that in January, none of them would have jobs. 9 stores are closing in Quebec and 31 across the country. The company says that American workers will be given new jobs, but they haven't given the same assurance to their Canadian employees. Mr. Speaker, given that these jobs are in danger, what will the minister do to protect our workers? Minister.
Je voudrais remercier ma collègue pour sa question. Nos pensées vont aux travailleurs, aux familles et aux communautés touchées par ces fermetures de magasins.
We will protect all members who were affected by these closures. This transaction was examined to ensure that it would have a positive effect economically for Canada. We will continue to work with these workers.
Mr. West.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Lowe's has announced it will be closing 31 stores across Canada, firing thousands of workers. The government was warned this foreign takeover would reduce competition and close stores. The pattern was clear. Best Buy took over Future Shop, workers fired. Target took over Zellers, workers fired. And then Lowe's came after Rona, workers fired. And who greenlighted all this? This minister. Instead of plywood on shelves, now it's being used to place on the windows and the doors of the stores. Can the minister explain why in the U.S. no one will lose their job from Lowe's closures, whereas the deal he cut for Canada has thousands of workers fired? Why is he the only one left with a job?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, again, I understand the concern raised by the member opposite, and of course our hearts go out to the workers, their families, and the community impacted by these store closures. We were always concerned, and we always remain concerned when we hear about job losses. And the member is correct. Under the Investment Canada Act, we actually did a thorough investigation and looked into the matter, and we also consulted the Quebec government as well. We were able to secure the headquarters in Boucherville and all the associated senior management positions, and will continue to monitor the situation on an ongoing basis. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are still trying to cover up an embarrassing situation. Maybe that's why the government has dumped some 135,000 documents on the courts. Those who are defending Vice Admiral Norbin are still not sure if the government is really willing to cooperate. So my question is very simple. Will the government commit to providing all of the documents necessary if the judge so orders?
Public safety.
There is obviously an outstanding legal proceeding before the courts right now. The matter of the disclosure of documents is a matter that the judge is seized of in that case. The various parties to the court proceeding will make their legal arguments, and the judge will decide with respect to issues such as privilege and confidence. It's in the hands of the courts, and that's where it should be determined.
The Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, the government for over a month was pleading with us to stop asking questions about the Mark Norman trial. Then suddenly something amazing on Friday happened. They finally turned the confidential documents over to the court, Mr. Speaker. I guess better is possible, Mr. Speaker. Will the government confirm today that they will waive all cabinet confidences over documents that judge deems relevant so that Admiral Mark Norman can receive a fair trial?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we have been saying for over a month that both sides in this legal proceeding, the prosecution and the defense, have competent, independent counsel. In the case of the prosecution, it's the Public Prosecution Service of Canada. The defense obviously has very capable counsel. They will take the proceedings that they believe are relevant. The matter is in the hands of the judge in the case, and the judge will decide. That's how our court system works, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, now that the government has been forced to hand over the documents in the Admiral Norman legal matter, the questions of several conflict of interests surrounding Liberal ministers and members of Parliament remain, Mr. Speaker. So to be transparent, will the government release all 73 names that their own investigation revealed were aware of cabinet secrets regarding the Davie shipbuilding decision?
The Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, as we've said from the very outset in this matter, this case is before the courts. We have an independent judicial system. It is up to representatives for the Crown and representatives for the defense to make their respective arguments in court, and the courts will determine the right way to proceed going forward. I would hazard to guess that the courts in this country don't need the assistance of the official opposition.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, under the Conservative government, nothing was done to support our artists or modernize our laws and culture. After this decade of indifference for our artists and creators, our government is taking action. Last week, our government announced reforms aimed at modernizing the Copyright Act. Grâce au changement à la Commission.
Thanks to the changes to the Copyright Act, artists will be paid more quickly and fairly for their work. Can the Minister of Canadian Heritage and Multiculturalism please tell us what this reform means for our artists and creators? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Edmonton Centre for his excellent question. The Copyright Board plays an important role and allows artists, creators to be fairly compensated for their work, but it took years to approve royalties and render decisions Why, Mr. Speaker? Because the Conservatives did nothing to modernize the board. So we took action.
These measures will help simplify the decision-making process, reduce delays, and we will continue to work with our artists to ensure that they are paid on time and fairly.
For Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, Asia Bibi spent 8 years in solitary confinement in Pakistan in the world's most high-profile blasphemy case. We are excited about her acquittal, but she and her family remain in grave danger. Ministerial permits have been used in the past to help vulnerable victims of false blasphemy charges in Pakistan, such as in the case of Rimsha Masi under the previous government. So will the minister continue this proud Canadian tradition and offer asylum to Asia Bibi and her family?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Canada-U.S. Relations.
Mr. Speaker, the right of freedom of religion or belief must and shall be protected. We're very relieved that the Supreme Court of Pakistan is clear in Asia Bibi of charges of blasphemy, and we urge the government of Pakistan to take all necessary steps to ensure the safety of Asia Bibi and her family. We continue to urge the government and people of Pakistan to reform the application of the blasphemy laws to prevent the targeting of religious minorities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Esquimalt Saanich Suk.
Mr. Speaker, Tanzania has announced a government task force which tomorrow will begin hunting down and arresting people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex, with penalties ranging from 30 years to life in prison. The public has been asked to report gay people using a government snitch line. Hundreds have already been forced into hiding. Amnesty International and others have condemned this hate campaign, and even the United States has issued a travel warning for Americans in Tanzania. Canada has done nothing. Will the government speak out against this incitement to hatred, persecution, and violence?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of International Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government believes that the human rights of all persons to be universal and indivisible, and these include the human rights of LGBTQ persons. We will continue to champion respect for diversity and human rights, including the rights of LGBTQ persons, with fellow members of the international community, including with Tanzania. We will continue to work with the countries to ensure the rights of all individuals are respected and protected. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Avignon, La Métis, Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, our government provides the Navy and the Coast Guard with the ships that they need to serve Canadians, while generating good middle-class jobs and significant economic spin-offs for Quebec and all of Canada. As part of the National Shipbuilding Strategy, we've already awarded over $1 billion in contracts to Quebec companies. In this way, we're supporting hundreds of workers and local economies. Can the Minister of Public Services and Procurement tell the House what our government is doing for Quebecers and Canadians as part of the National Shipbuilding Strategy? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Honourable Member for his question. We have awarded 17% of National Shipbuilding Strategy contracts to Quebec companies. Last summer, we awarded a $610 million contract to the Davie Shipyard for icebreakers. Last week, we awarded part of a $7 billion maintenance contract to Davie for the maintenance of 12 Halifax-class frigates. So we are continuing to create good jobs for Quebec.
Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, I would have a lot to say about the government's approach to religious freedom and human rights. My question was about the issue of asylum for Asia Bibi and her family. Time is of the essence. The family has specifically asked the Prime Minister of Canada to intervene. Shabazz Bhatti and Salman Taseer were killed because of their advocacy on this case. Over 150 violent demonstrators have been arrested over the last few days, most of whom were specifically called for Asia to be killed. So again, my question for the Minister of Immigration, will the government offer asylum to Asia Bibi and her family?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Canada-U.S. Relations.
Mr. Speaker, with like-minded friends and allies, there are discreet and delicate discussions underway, and I will not say anything further at this time.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Patriot Verchères. Mr. Speaker, when Rona was bought out by the U.S. giant Lowe's, the government had the power to set the terms of the transaction. They could have set conditions, for example, protecting jobs in stores. We asked the government to do so, but they did nothing. The result? Well, today we've learned that 9 Rona stores are going to close in Quebec. There are 40 Liberal MPs from Quebec who did nothing to protect our workers. How can they justify their inaction to the people who are losing their jobs? The Honourable Minister for Innovation. Mr. Speaker, our thoughts are with the workers, families, and communities affected by these store closures. We are always concerned when we learn of any job losses. This transaction was examined to ensure that it would have an overall positive economic impact for Canada. Consultations were also held with the province of Quebec. These conditions need to be respected, and we are working to ensure that they will be. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Quebec TV series are adapted all around the world. Our filmmakers are no strangers to the Cannes Film Festival or Hollywood Boulevard in Oscar season. But don't bother looking for us on Netflix, Mr. Speaker. In the $500 million agreement signed a year ago, not a single cent went to producing original French language content. Netflix's contribution to our culture is nil. When will the government force these web giants to do their fair share and force them to charge taxes so that we can invest that money in our culture? The Honourable Minister of Heritage. Mr. Speaker, the government is here for our artists. We've made significant investments in the Canada Media Fund and our culture. And of course, we know that our laws are 20 years old and we need to update them for the digital age, so we've created a committee to meet that end. We are going to make laws based on certain principles, including that everyone participating in the system has to contribute to the system. Nobody gets a free pass.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development. This is a follow-up to my question last week. I don't believe that the Minister grasped the severity of Nunavut's housing shortage. Yes, $240 million has been allocated. It sounds like a lot, but it's over 10 years. That's 48 new houses per year for the entire territory, less than 2 per community. This is a crisis. Overcrowding is contributing to our high rates of youth suicide and tuberculosis. No Canadian should live like this. So I ask again, will the Minister take immediate action to work with the government in Nunavut to solve this crisis? Thank you, Mr.
The Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased but sad to address this question. Indeed, we are in a crisis in many parts of Canada. And that's because the federal government failed over many years to acknowledge its responsibility to look after the housing needs of many communities across Canada, failed to address the particular housing needs and conditions in northern Canada, failed to work appropriately and respectfully with Indigenous peoples, including the Inuit. And I'm glad to say that this is changing. This is going to keep changing over the next 10 years through the first ever national housing strategy.
Bravo. Tabling of documents.
I would ask the honourable members to continue their conversations outside the chamber.
Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 36, Bracket 8, I have the honour to table in both official languages the government's responses to 4 petitions.
Dépôt de projet de loi.
Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers. Reports from interparliamentary delegations. The honourable member for Sackville, Preston, Chesapeake. Excuse me, Mr. Speaker. My volume wasn't working on my headset. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to the standing order, I have the